Now when I was a little boy, at the age of 5, I had something in my pocket, keeps a lot of folks alive. Now I'm a man of 21. You know, baby, we can have a lot of fun. I'm a man.
Hello and welcome to the ROKER RAPPORT podcast. My name's Graham Falk and today I'm hosting a podcast with a Sunderland legend. In 388 appearances, he scored 23 goals. He won 2 Division 1 titles.
I'm not sure that was 27.
Was it 27?
That's when you
I was testing you, Kevin.
Yeah.
I was testing you.
No, you might be right, but I'm sure it was 27.
He's known as one of the greatest Sunderland captains of all time and once managed to hit the crossbar from 40 yards out with the sheer brute force of one of your tackles. Kevin, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. I presume, if I remember right, there was about 60 yards out, let's face it. The stories always get exaggerated as they get older, don't they? That was a hell of a tackle mine, then.
It was.
Yeah, I did want to hurt him at the time, but that's a time of the past. I'm a nice lad now.
Big dunk.
Yeah, he was top man, by the way. Nice,
easy one to begin with.
Yeah.
Biggest wind-up merchant in your 10 years at Sunderland, or just under 10 years?
I would have said probably, it's probably a group of them, really. And I think whenever you have successful teams, they have their own little bits they do to just, I don't know how to explain it all because I'm not great with big words, but they just have the togetherness that sometimes you just don't get.
Yeah.
And they take the piss out of each other, they wind each other up, and it's just about making sure you're together. Now, when I say they take the piss out of people, they have a laugh with people, but that's like we can because we're our team.
Yeah.
Now, if somebody else from the outside tries to take the piss out of that person, all of a sudden, everybody's behind him saying, no, you can't take the piss. He's our captain or he's our teammate. Yeah. We can, you can't. You need to be part of us to be able to do this. You need to earn that right. And you find then that they're the strongest teams because you need to have a laugh. You need to have a bit of fun. And you need to have people like that in the team. If you have somebody like me who can't help it when you go training to be so serious it's ridiculous and train like I play, you also need lads that you had to sometimes say to me, wait, calm down, will you, like that?
Yeah.
You know? I mean, Kevin Phillips once, I tackled him in training and I thought, as I always did, it was a fair tackle. And then he came out on crutches with his ankle all strapped up and made out I'd done him. And he wouldn't be fit for Saturday. Well, I was bloody mortified. He was just taking the piss out of us. Do you know what I mean? There was nothing wrong with him, really. But if you was to really ask me, the two that used to get me at it a lot was Tony Coton, actually, our head of recruitment now, and Paul Stewart.
Yeah.
And the two of them used to concoct things together. You know, there was one time they'd done a thing where I think we were in Ireland and they said, we're going to have a meeting today, discuss who's going to be captain next year. Now, you can imagine I'm going, you can go yourself, like, I'm captain. Oh no, Kevin, it's it has to be democratic like that. Well, honest to God, right, they wound me up for ages, and then I went to go to the loo and Martin Scott went there. I think what happens is, I think they voted and Scotty voted against me, so I followed Scotty's into the loo, and I'm fucking hammering Scotty, sees me big mate, like, going, why the fuck didn't you vote for me like that? He's gone, well, to be fair, he said, I thought you'd win it hands down. He said, I just wanted to chuck a little grenade in there, like, but they would do this to me just solely to wind me up.
Yeah.
And they knew they were doing it on purpose. And then there's another time I had this thing about when we travelled to games. Say, for example, match day would be a red shirt, travelling with blue. So I goes to the boys, right, we're travelling blue tomorrow. So everybody knew what we're going. So we looked a team, like, we looked professional.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking we're all in blue, puts me blue T-shirt on, thinking I'm looking good like that. I turns up, everyone else is in red. Now, all of a sudden, I'm thinking, did I really do this? I'm sure we was in that. And then all of a sudden you start thinking, now, it might sound on the radio talking to about it now quite minor, but when you've got a group of lads who are completely in a different colour to you and going to me, what you doing, like, you told us this, and nailing me. And it was only when we got to Darlington railway station, because we travelled by train that day, that I looked over at him and I saw Tony Coton on his phone looking at me, waiting for Paul Stewart to get on, basically saying, we've got him, like that. And if I hadn't have clocked him doing that, and I just went, and obviously I can't really say what I said. I've sworn a couple of times, which I don't like doing. But that was just minor things, but they would get me at it all the time.
Yeah.
And they would love it. Now, I can sit with Tony now in the training ground and they start bringing out stories. And I'm not lying when I say I'll start crying with laughter because he'll bring up stuff that I've completely forgot about. And he go, do you remember when we done this? And I go, do you know what? I forgot all about that. And he's absolutely brilliant. So him and Stewie were superb at it. And like I said, I think every team needs that. But it's amazing when you do have that connection between a group of lads, it makes it strong. And yeah, it was good.
Talking about good lads, I think I've asked you this before, sort of in private, and it's a good story. But Denis Smith obviously signed you in 1990. Tell the story of how he sold the club to you, because I think it's a great story.
I think in general, you're talking about when I came up here with him.
Yeah.
I think you have to understand as well that it all started with me wanting to leave Portsmouth. It was a little bit of a standoff between myself and Portsmouth because I was at that stage, and when I look back now, I've done exactly the same here. I didn't feel Portsmouth valued me fairly in terms of wages and that. I was captain of the club at the time. They offered me a new contract. It was okay. Wasn't nothing that made you go, actually, yeah, that's great like that. Yeah. It was okay. I went to see the manager and he sort of said, well, this is what we can do. So I then had a choice, and the choice was to say to myself, right, I'm leaving. Now, that also takes some nuts. You have to remember, I'm living on the south coast at the time. So I turned down the contract, then goes to Bosman ruling. But then all of a sudden it's a case of like you have to wait till somebody comes in for you. So I went to Goodwood races with the lads, end of season came home that night. And this is just a small part of the story, but it's relative. And I went to my missus as anybody rang for us, because of them days, no mobile phones. It was a house phone and that was it. And you had to make sure you were in when the call came if you didn't have the answer phone on. And she went, Matt Busby's been on the phone for you. And obviously now, why at the time you still think, Matt Busby like that? I went, Matt Busby? She went, Denis Smith's going to bring you on Monday. I went, you mean, obviously, and may have swore, said, Viv Busby. She went, yep, that's the one like that, So it was quite good. And then anyhow, to be fair, Denis rang us, just had a bit of crack, said, would you come up? So me and my missus went up, met him at the station. Now, Denis was quite an imposing figure. Yeah. Denis didn't mess with anybody. And I have to say, everybody I think in football has to be lucky that they come across managers that trust them, come across managers that like them as football. You might have to like them as a person, but you sometimes are lucky that someone wants you to sign for them, and it's the right call. And I was lucky with Denis, if I'm brutally honest, really lucky. But Denis was also ahead of his time, because Denis would turn around and said, okay, good, you and your missus like to come up. So me and my missus got the train, Portsmouth to London to Durham and that. And I remember walking along the platform and looking at him. And now obviously I'd never met him in my life, but knew him. Yeah. So I went up, shook his hand, introduced my wife, and I literally went, I meant to wear a carnation, so you recognise me, trying to break the ice. And he just looked at me, and he didn't change his demeanour, anything. He just went, I usually recognise a footballer, but I didn't recognise you, and just walked off. And now all of a sudden I'm thinking, I don't like that. So follows him up the platform, gets in the car, and his wife was as well, so it was nice. You're now having to break the ice a bit, thinking, where do I go from here? So I said, do you think you'd do as well as what you've done this year? Because they just got promoted, and it was admittedly via the financial irregularities with Swindon, but they ultimately got promoted, which was a fantastic accomplishment. And he went, actually, I thought we'd have done a lot better. And I thought, at the time, arrogant bastard like that. Yeah. So I quietly mouthed to my missus, what an arrogant, and I did say a rude word to her, he is. And he then heard, and he went, and you find out how arrogant I am when I come out. I went, fucking hell, he's got good hearing too, you know what I mean? And it was non-stop with him. So anyhow, he was brilliant. He showed us all around Sunderland, said to me, how much money have you got to buy a house, which I felt was quite invasive. But what he was really good at, he was really sort of saying, well, I'll tell you where you can live and where you can't, that. We went through some of the areas at the time that were going through development, shall we say. And it was quite funny because he said, what sort of car you got? And I went, I've got a Renault 11 Turbo, red, like that. A little bit cockiness, you know what I mean? Nice, fast sports car. He went, have you got an alarm on it? I went, no. Like that. He said, well, if you come here, son, I'd get an alarm on it if I was you, like that, So that was quite weird. But it was just a fact. He gave me a whole glossary of Sunderland. Yeah. Told you about the club, took you to the training ground. I can remember us going at the Charlie Hurley, which was hilarious. And they had just planted a load of conifers all the way around. He went, yeah, and the pitch is getting developed, this and that, and the others happened. And you see those trees we've just planted, within 12 months, they're going to be 24 foot high or 40 or whatever it is they're going to be, and it's going to stop the wind coming in. Well, I left nearly 10 years later and they were the same height. That's all I say. So I don't know who, got the job for doing that. But he was really good. So in the end, he's gone through all of this. So he's basically shown me, he said, oh, yeah, we'll go down the seafront now. And I went, sorry? He's going, yeah, we'll go down the seafront. I went, what, Sunderland's by the sea? Now, how ignorant is that for me that I didn't realise Sunderland, yeah, and they're all nodding your heads going, yeah, bloody ignorant like that. I didn't realise. Now, I grew up by the sea. So for me, it was like music to my ears. I'm thinking, oh, happy days like that. So he took us down the seafront and that. And then he went, right, what time's your train? I didn't want to talk about anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept thinking, I went, what, is that it? He went, yeah. He went, what time's your train? So I went, well, we can get one. Then he said, oh, wait, then we'll take you back now. So I went, well, we're not going to talk about anything. And he went, oh, no, I just wanted to meet you. And I thought it was ingenious. I thought it was absolutely brilliant, because what he was really doing was saying, well, I'll bring you up, and if I get any sort of hesitancy, I might turn around and go, actually, he's not for us. If I didn't show any enthusiasm for what Denis wanted out of me as a person or for his plans for the club, if I'd have been him, I'd have told me to go home as well, and I wouldn't have run back. But I thought it was brilliant what he'd done. He just really wanted to see what sort of character I was, what sort of person I was, whether I displayed the enthusiasm for the job coming up, because let's face it, we all knew it was going to be tough. Yeah. At the time, Sunderland didn't have much money to spend. I think it was myself, Peter Davenport and Brian Mooney came in, if that was it. We did have some really good young players, I'll give it that, and there were also some good players at the club. But he just wanted to know that what he was spending his money on was of somebody of a reasonable character that wanted what he wanted. Yeah. And to give him credit, he rang us a few days later. I wouldn't say the contract offer blew me out the water or anything like that, but I thought, actually, it's a challenge and it's something different. And so I said to my missus, right, yeah, I'm going to go for it. Rang my dad, told me dad, explained to him how it was going to go about. Then obviously as time grew on, people knew it was going to move. My next door neighbour, and I still remember this, was turning around and saying, oh, I don't know about that, it's a big move, it's a long, long way. And I used to say, well, I'll have to make it the right move. Yeah. But I think the best summing up is when I sat in the press conference and Jeff Story turned around to me and said, have you made the right move? And he looked at me, he was our local reporter from the Echo, he looked at me and went, have you made the right move? And I just looked back at him, I said, I'll have to make it the right move. Yeah. And even him by throwing that out there, I don't suppose, he probably felt at the time, but it was like challenging me to think, right, I'll have to make it the right move. Now I've got to tell you wholeheartedly, I was shit for the first few weeks I came in. Like, positively shite. Now, I know I shouldn't swear and I'm going to get in trouble, because I did promise Lou at the club I wouldn't swear when I come on. Right? But I was that bad. Like, and when I say bad, I wasn't bad. What it is, you have to take into account, and this is something you learn as you start travelling about, the upheaval that players go through when they do move clubs. You know, people assume, and it's a lot easier nowadays, the transition from players coming abroad to England is a lot easier because they have a lot more people helping them, where in those days, it was just me, my missus, and our Luke, right? So you imagine Luke was just really young at the time. Yeah. I've now got to make arrangements to get from Portsmouth to Sunderland to train and then go back home to see them. So I've got the training to consider in terms of the physicality and how tired I'm going to get. I can remember laying in the Royal County, as it was called then, in Durham, and I was in a single room on a bed, roasting hot with wet towels over me because I couldn't sleep. And I sound like I'm making excuses. It's fact. That's what it was like then. And we went to Scotland to play in a game, and I think I was crap in that one as well. And I drove from Scotland back to Portsmouth. So I left Scotland when it was light, drove all through the night and got to Portsmouth when it was light. And you're only literally home for a day or so, and you're driving back again. And now people go, well, you shouldn't have bloody done it, but it's not as easy as what people think, it's tough like that. And people may turn around and go, tough. Like, it was, because it was just us. Now, the club, as much as they could, were outstanding with their support of us. And then I remember we finally got sorted out to go to our little place we rented a place in Willington that the club out fine for us. And it sort of slowly but surely came better and better and better. I was very fortunate that the lads were outstanding. Dickie Ord, who technically I'd come to play either alongside or challenge for a place with, was outstanding. Benno, all the people you'd expect you to help you and did.
Proper characters.
Yeah, the characters, if I'm brutally honest, were probably why I knew it was the right place for me, because you had such a variation of them and that. And then, anyhow, so we moved to Willington, and to then understand what you're coming into is important, because We played Torpedo Moscow, I think it was called, on the Saturday, whenever it was. And I can't remember what the score was. All I can remember is slotting past Tony Norman for an own goal. He's running out. I'm trying to lay it back. 4-1. Thank you very much for that. Well, obviously, I helped the 4, and I slotted past Tony Norman. And you know where you think things can't get any worse. But actually, in the game, I played okay.
Yeah.
Taking into account everything, they were in their season, I believe, I remember rightly, and we were doing pre-season. But I went home that night, and pivotal moments, epiphanies, whatever you want to call it, important moments, was me saying to my missus, I'll go out and get some Chinese tonight. You know, so goes into the village. Again, no one really knew who I was. Goes in the village, goes in the Chinese, opens a door, goes up, orders me Chinese, and you just stand there, don't you, now, looking at the telly, trying to read the paper, looking at the menu in Chinese, thinking, why do they put it in? No one can understand it, but you do. And then the door opened again. I looked over my shoulder, and this is where you understand there's a slight way of pronouncing the name Ball in the northeast to what you'd get down south. And I looked round at this bloke, and he's looked at me through the squinty eyes. He'd obviously been to the working men's club, and he just went to me, a ye Kevin Ball. A ye Kevin Ball, I'll never forget it. And I looked round and I just went, yeah, which he then proceeded to tell me I was effing shite. And he said it very vehemently and quite to the point. And I remember looking at him, lucky enough, the lady came back with me Chinese, and I looked at her. Now, be fair, she wouldn't have understood what was going on. I got me Chinese, I looked back at him, I went, thanks, and I walked out the door like that. And I got home and I went to my missus, I could never guess what, this bloke in the Chinese has only had the audacity to turn around and say to me, you Kevin Ball. And when I went, yeah, he said, I'm effing shite. She just went, well, let's face it, you ain't been very good, and just took the Chinese and went. But it was good, because there are moments that person, or I've never, I don't presume, seen since, even though I have spoken to someone who said it, you know, oh, me mate, it was me mate, like that. And if it was, brilliant, because he probably helped me. Because I think then all of a sudden I thought, well, I ain't having that anymore. Yeah. And then, you know, you start wanting to be better and better and better and better. And that in itself, from that person, now, whilst I won't say he should take full credit for the X amount of years I was at the club, and that, I would have said he should take a bit of credit, because by chucking that out there as he did, I thought, yeah. Now, Dennis was also very good at taking us out all year into talkings, into clubs and that. And when we used to go out, it used to be quite violent at times. People would be giving Dennis it rotten, and Dennis would be giving them it back. And we'd sit on the stage thinking, well, it's going to end up in a punch up here in a minute. I mean, that's how bad it was. But I give Dennis credit. He never backed down at all. I tell you what, by the end of it, when he had explained it all to them, they loved him. Yeah. And I used to sit there thinking, my God, it's great. He was, as a manager, outstanding, like absolutely brilliant. Even the time I called him a miserable bastard at the lads' Christmas do, and I had to go in the next morning and say, look, I'm really sorry about yesterday. He said, that's all right. He said, next time, keep your eye on your drinks. I wasn't drinking. The lads were putting a little tot in my drinks, so stitching me up like, I think I called him a miserable, may have been a bold bastard at the time, like that, And he was brilliant, because I went in to see him, and to give him credit, didn't say anything, just said, next time, watch your drink. So he taught me a lesson about the press. I said something to the press once. Next couple of days I went, he said, been with the press boys, have we? I went, yeah. He said, you need to come up my office. And he didn't cane me. He just taught me a lesson again about what the press do up here and how they can twist, turn, exaggerate. Now, again, so in 1990, lucky enough, they were still doing it then, as they probably still do it now. But he taught me that as well. I think I did tell him to F off once in a game, and which was out of order, just typical probably frustration or something. Of course. And I went up the next day to apologise, and again, he'd done something that was absolutely magnificent. He just went, that's fine. He said, I'll give all my players one chance. You've just had yours. And I thought, well, I'm never going to do it again, unless I had an ulterior motive to leave, and then it would be a challenge to him. But I respected him. He was just an all-round great manager. He used to give us certain days off at the time I didn't like, if I'm honest. I used to think it was too much. I used to want to train. But he used to say, no, you're going to rest here because of this, and you're going to rest there because of that. But when we trained hard. I mean, he used to join in training. Yeah. And I'll be honest, he used to smack the lads about. Like, I think him and Anthony Smith, who was only a young lad at the time, went for a challenge with the heads. Smiter was Sparko, and there's Dennis with the biggest gash across his head, just giving it like that. And we're all looking at him thinking, does he realise he's actually cut his head or not? And everyone was too frightened to tell him, do you know what I mean? But I think, again, I go back to what I said. Sometimes the manager that buys you has got to also, obviously, want to buy you, but he's got to buy into you as a person. Yeah, of course. Because if you just buy someone and then don't want to have any connection with them, that person's going to feel a bit lost. Now, I was lucky because Dennis even once said to me in the game, no, I think it was in pre-season when me and Audie came in late. I say late, no, we came in last in the running round Maiden Castle. And I think he just looked at me, looked at as if to say, what the FNL have I bought you for? Do you see what I mean? But he was buying into me without him realising, or maybe he was. He was buying into me, but he wanted to know about me as a person. Yeah. And I think the problem with football as life has gone on, it's changed so much that managers probably don't get time to actually really get to know their players because, let's face it, that's what they need to do. They need to understand how they tick, need to know what's going on in their private life. And I think agents now more took over that. But the downside to that is the managers don't really know, but the managers are the most important one. So, but he was good, and I was lucky because, like I said, and maybe I should also thank Paul Hardiman because I've no doubt Hardy put a word in for me at the time as well, but he was good.
It's kind of hard to put it in chronological order. Well, it's not, but it's like there's so much to talk about. But one thing that really stuck out to me, and it's, I suppose it aligns with sort of recent stuff. You're one of few people that has not only played for Sunderland, but obviously captained Sunderland at Wembley, but not just once, but twice. Yeah. 1992 FA Cup final.
Well, I wasn't captain. I played then.
You played, that's right.
I think it was captain in 98. Captain. I was captain.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Both games were kind of different. I would say we were probably the favourites in the playoff final, and that was a mammoth 4-4 game. Liverpool, obviously, you're 9 times out of 10 going to be the favourites anyway. But I suppose I'll ask you more like this as a captain for the 98 game, because I'd say you weren't captain in 92. But how do you handle that defeat as a captain and as a player when you get beat at Wembley? How do you recover from that?
I think, again, I go back to what I said. You know, if you have players around you or players within the squad, they're not that are good players. Let's face that does help tightly, but also resilient to defeat and mentally strong enough to say we need to go one step better. Yeah. Now, everybody after a game gets upset. If you get beat, you know, like after the 2 Wembley games this year, you know, everybody goes with high hopes and we want to come out of it. We want to see our team running around as winners and we want to celebrate as fans. We want to celebrate as staff or celebrate as players. We all want to do that. And after a game, you know, if you look at the playoff on how the goal came and it kicks you in the kahunas, doesn't it? Right? Now you have a choice then. Do you feel sorry for yourself? And we're all different. I think, you know, it's important that we understand that we all have our own ways of dealing with these situations. And some players might take a couple of weeks. Yeah. Some players might take 5 minutes. And people go, God, does it not matter to him? No, that's his way of dealing with it. That's him saying, listen, this is how I want to put it to bed. I ain't going to worry about it because I can't do nothing about it. So I'm putting it to bed. Bash, gone. Yeah. What I can do now, right, is look to what I can do to improve. I think the biggest thing about the game itself, one, we were talking about this prior to our playoff final this year, and people were associating the two, and I tried to separate them. I went, yes, there is obviously the same team and all that lot, but this is this team now. It was that team then, totally different scenarios, totally different club in terms of where we were, what we were doing. So I tried to separate the two because I think it was really important that this team, or the last season's team, got the credit they deserved, and it shouldn't be, you know, anything to do with ours. It was, there's similarities, but it shouldn't be. But so you look at the game anyhow. So we go back to our one in 98. You play the game the way it did, the way it fluctuated between who's going in front, who's not, the situation with the goal towards the end of the game. Then it comes to penalties. You have the people that are now not on the pitch, Kevin Phillips, Lee Clark, who's going to take a penalty. You know, I had this thing about if I ever had the opportunity to take a penalty, would you want to take a penalty in front of 90,000 fans at Wembley and knowing that there's hundreds of millions or whatever watching on telly and the game's worth millions? Right, I'll ask the 3 of you in front of me now. Any of you say yes, out and out? You're going
to... I would take one. But
bollocks, because I feel... That's bollocks,
but I'd miss
right?
It.
Right, so there you go. But in the main though, right, what do we all say? We all think, well, I don't want to take a penalty.
Not a chance. Right? Would I be nervous? That obviously...
Yeah, yes. You would. But do you know, that there in itself is like how you would always feel. And in that game, my thing was, they had gone off, really went, who wants to take one? I couldn't live with the fact afterwards that if I hadn't said, yeah, I'll take one. By the way, I'd practised. That was the other thing. I'd practised for my penalty. Yeah, I'd practised for my... I would have said it probably was, because it was like, I knew what I was doing, without a shadow of a doubt. I knew what I was doing. I was going to go and take it. And I went, yeah, I'll take one. Because I didn't want afterwards, if someone said, why didn't you take one? Now, if I wanted to say truthfully I didn't want one, and if someone in the press said to me, I'll be honest with you, I didn't want to take one, I'd actually say the player fair play. He's admitted he didn't want to take one. I have no issue with that. What I would have an issue with, if someone afterwards had said, oh, I wish I'd took one, I'd probably want to knock him out.
Yeah.
Because I'd go, well, it's easy now to say I wish I had. I have the balls to say I was too frightened. And I, as captain, would be the first to go, yeah, I understand that. And I wouldn't have an issue with that at all. Now, did I shit myself? Absolutely. But you have to go in a little zone when you get into that. And then obviously it came in and what happened. And even when you look back at Mickey's penalty, if someone had said to me when he was on that run-up, is Mickey going to score this? I'd have put everything and anything on saying no.
Yeah.
But if someone had said to me when Mickey Gray picked the ball up, would he score? I'd have pretty much said, yeah. I absolutely loved Mickey Gray as a player. I think when we talk about people at our club over the course of the years that have really surpassed everything, Mickey Gray for me is one of those. Yeah. Local lad, putting up with everything. As a player, brilliant. Trained, brilliant. Pain in the arse off the pitch at times, but that was Mickey. Do you know what I mean? Every now and again, something would happen, and you used to get the phone call, and here we go again, like that. But yeah, yeah. And you know, I got one call once about something going on in Newcastle. Yeah, no problem, like that. But I've got to tell you now, one, great lad, funny as anything, witty, dry, Kenya, like that. What a good player though, and I think we need to make sure that. Sometimes I listen to him now and talking with a plum in his mouth, and I think, oh, he has reinvented himself. Well done, Mickey, like that. But I've got to tell you now, great player, great trainer. I went to Sheffield Wednesday once. I'm going to go back to our bit. I have to tell you, with our under-18s one year, and Mickey was at Sheffield Wednesday, and he weren't playing. I think he was coming back from injury. And then I looked at this lad running across the top pitch. Now, Mickey was getting some age then, by the way. And I just went to the lad, see that bloke there? I said, I watched him playing in the reserves at 16, and I said he'd play in our first. Oh, who is it? And I told him. But he was unbelievable. And then he came up to say hello. It was lovely to see him. Fit as anything. You've got to give the bloke 100% credit. Outstanding. But that particular moment, would Mickey Gray have thought how much that would have influenced what he'd done going forward? Probably not, because he probably just wanted to crawl under a stone and that. But what was important, when I go back to what I said about, you know, Tony Coton and Paul Stewart, is having great people around you. Now, at that particular moment in time, we not only had great players around us, great characters, strong characters, we had great staff. Now, we all come off the pitch, you know, upset and all that lot. And this is my version of things that I still remember, and it might be completely wrong because somebody else might say something different. I can remember sitting in the changing room and it all being quiet because you had crates of champagne and that there, and no one wanted to touch it because we'd just been beat. And then Bobby Saxton turning around and saying, ah, well, Mickey, it was a fucking shit penalty anyhow, like that. And us all starting to laugh and then battering Mickey. And then Mickey's going, ah, nah, you know, like in his accent at the time. It's not like that at all now. He wouldn't say, he'd say, I know now, like that, right? and it was brilliant because it broke the ice straight away. So all of a sudden, we're battering Mickey. Mickey's taking it. We all get in the bath, had the crack. We get out. We're now having to do the press interviews, and everybody assumed we were going to be like really, like that. I remember Niall spoke magnificently about the fact we wouldn't get beat the following year. I followed him because I then came out, and I'm looking at him going, like, are you for real, like that? And he's going, looking, pulling faces at me. But I thought it was a great opening gambit because he set the bar so high. But I tell you what we could do, we could still touch it. It wasn't like he went, we're going to win every game, and we were all going, I'm stupid. He'd say we would be unbeaten, I think it was. So he literally put the bar within touching distance, but it was fingertip distance. And then we just went upstairs. I would have said we pretty much put it to bed quite quickly. Yeah. You know, everybody was upset. We were probably all okay. I remember me and Quinny wanted to take the kids down on the pitch to have a kick about on the pitch. This was just prior to them knocking Wembley down. Going down there, the bloke went, you're not going on there, lads. And we looked at him and went, listen here, mate, we just effing run around in here for 120 minutes. You don't run another 5 minutes with the kids in the balloon, do you? He went, fair enough, like that. So we go on with a balloon. That's all we were playing with. And then we got on the bus, goes home. I remember Sacco's missus coming on, June saying to Bobby, can the girls get on with the lads and the kids? Which technically you'd have said was a good idea. But Sacco went, no. And that was even better because Sacco knew for that period of time, if there's any arguing, wanted to go on, if there was anything wanted to be said, that was the time. Yeah. We get to Darrington, I think it was. We go in there. Reedy went to me, Skip, what do we want to do? Are we stopping or not? And I went, Gaffer, I said, we've got to stop here and get pissed as farts. I may have said at the time kids and all, but that was a joke, right? I didn't really expect this kid to get drunk. But it was more a case of, I'll go back to when we got relegated down at Wimbledon. We travelled on the bus back after that one, and then all went our separate ways. And my daughter still to this day can remember me being sat on the kitchen floor upset because I didn't have no one to, like commiserate with. It was like all that hard work, and I had no one to understand why. And it's even when we won the league of 105 points, the boys went out for part of it without the girls, and that wasn't being us. We just need to celebrate together. Yeah. So we goes in there. We has a great night. Dickie Orr's up on stage. Dickie didn't play, but he's singing the Ruchicha on the Music Man. It was brilliant. Then, obviously, for the rest of the journey, gets back on the bus. The kids and the wives are on it. I think it must have been then that I saw Lionel down the front, sitting on the steps, having a fag on the way up, because you could them days. And I've looked at him, and this is something, again, I go back to knowing people as people. I didn't really know Lionel. Me and Lionel had a clash of personalities. We were totally and utterly different. Sometimes he got on my nerves, and he probably thought, I've got like that as well, which is understandable. And I looked down at him, and he was sat there, and he just looked in a world of his own, smoking his fag like that. And I thought, he needs someone to go and sit down, put his arm around, just say, "Oh, man, come on," like that. And he was probably the one that was the most upset, because I wouldn't have called it a mistake. I would have called it an act of bravery, but a wrong decision when he tried to come for the ball. Because it wasn't the third, was it not the fourth he come for?
Richard Rufus for the cross.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. So he made a decision that he knew at that time, if he'd have got it, the game's probably over with. Yeah. Now that's quite brave, although at the time it's misguided because it was never coming through those amount of bodies. But you can imagine how it must have felt for him, because he'd probably reflect back on that so much over the course of his career. So his contract was up as well. Yeah, his contract. So I went down and to be fair, I sat down on him and went, "Oh, mate, give us a tab then." Now, I didn't smoke at the time. And then my daughter came down and went back to me. Missus said, "My dad's smoking," like that, and I was having a tab down the front with him. But he just needed to know that it was all of us, not one of us, it was all of us that suffered, And then I just think it was just a case of, right, put it to bed, let's move on. We'd already set our target for next year. I think what it is, the minute that game ended, not ended, but the minute we came out to change room and spoke to the press, I think everybody in that change room knew what we were going to do. Now, Reedy and Sacco knew we need to get 3 or 4 players in if we want to go to that next bit. The lads all wanted to be part of that next bit, and they all just went, right, we know what we want to do. It was like, as silly as it sounds, they say you get stronger out of a defeat sometimes. I firmly believe it did. But I think not just the players, I think the club did. I think people understandably, sympathise with Mickey. But I also think, and taken all into context as well, the one person that probably deserved a pat on the back in a different sense was Clive Mendonca. Because you imagine how he felt doing what he'd done to us, and he's a Sunderland fan. But he was absolutely magnificent on the day and should have got all the plaudits he deserved, because he was truly outstanding. So I think it was a great time, believe it or not. And then obviously after that, once you get going the following season, you're off and running. And I wouldn't have said probably every game we played brilliant, but what we did every game was had a right go. And we might not have been brilliant every game. We had an understanding of how we wanted to play. Bobby Saxton was magnificent at planning a team. When you look at the considerations, you have Mickey left back and Jono left wing. Well, Jono would go inside, Mickey would go outside. Yeah. 2 centre backs, I think, was it Butts and Mel most of the time? Melville. Right. Yeah. Well, Mel was the footballer. Mel was a proper footballer. Yeah. And Butts was the hard man. Like Butts, I'm not being funny, like pie thighs. Brutal. Oh my God, pie thighs, did you say? Yeah. I mean, the bloke was a magnificent team player. But if you're in a fight, oh wait, Butts, come with us, like that. You know what I mean? They see him coming, they run off type thing. Yeah, Chrissy Makin, who, believe it or not, had such a great relationship with Nicky Summer.
Love Chris Makin.
Right. Well, Chris Makin was a consummate professional, by the way. Yeah. Absolutely fit as anything.
Great bloke as well.
Great lad. Brilliant. And then Nicky was a little bit of a, what's the word we will use for him?
Nicky was Nicky.
Nicky was Nicky. That's probably the best thing, like, yeah. Nicky was Nicky, but he was brilliant at what we wanted for Quinny. And then you had either me and Clarkey, or me and Alex, or Clarkey and Alex. You had a group in there that we sort of all, I mean, I think if you would have said to me, out of, you have me and Lee Clark, one gets forward, one defends. I think Alex was probably the best player of the three of us, if I'm brutally honest.
Box bit, wasn't he, Alex?
I think what it is with Alex had an arrogance about him that I don't mean in a horrible way. Alex was a brilliant footballer.
You just loved Alex.
He wasn't a hard man, he was a topper. And then what he'd do with the backward shuffle. So he'd top someone, cause the fight, and then he'd be at the back of the queue giving it verbs. Like, yeah, there you go, right? But what a good player. So you had players in there that would really make sure that each one of us had the skills that suited the other one type of thing, And then you had Quinny and Kevin up front, where, again, was great. But then you still had Deitch and Bridgie to come in. And that's been, again, disrespectful to a lot of other players that were, Mullers and people like that would have all played their part.
Martin Smith,
like
talented players we've had, naturally talented.
Yeah. So you look at all of that. But if you go back to what you've said at the very beginning, it's a collective resilience of a good bunch of lads to say, we will, and then stick to it. And the hardest part will be when things are not going well, which did happen the following season. At Christmas, we were playing Crewe at the Stadium of Light, and I think the game was 0-0. Crewe were battering us. Rodney Jack was giving Mel and the boys at the back a right hard time. The crowd were getting on our backs. I went in and said, listen, concentrate on your jobs. And I did say at the time, I said, you've got to ignore the crowd. Concentrate on your jobs. Do your jobs, and they'll be back on our side. At the time, they were doing what you want them, expect them to do. They were venting. Why is that? Because they want to see us hammering tides like Crewe. Now, we showed more resilience by technically ignoring what they'd done, sticking our jobs, doing our jobs. Now, by the end of the game, when you win it, what are they doing? They're singing your praises again. That's human nature, innit? If I go to something I don't enjoy, I'm not going to sit there and clap when I don't enjoy it, am I? Yeah. If you go to the pitches, would you get up and walk out? So
the reason I asked about sort of Wembley, and obviously talking about recent times as well, and I've worded this as best as I possibly can because I think me and you have a relatively similar opinion on this. There's a lot of talk about George Honeyman and his ability to be captain, right? Now, you brought George through the academy. Yeah. You know George really, really well. And I think arguably, one of us, I said at the start, one of the greatest Sunderland captains of all time, if not the greatest. What are your thoughts on George and his ability as captain?
In what sense? Are you talking on the pitch, off the pitch?
Both. Why? Because I think me and you both think he's the right choice.
I 100% think he's the right choice. I think it's also at times how you perceive a captain to be and what you want from your captain, and everybody has their own idea of what they want from their captain, and I think they're entitled to that opinion. The modern game, what influence does a captain have on the pitch? Again, that's down to opinion. Some say they want this, some say they want that. The one thing I will say about George is he will not shy away from anybody. And it doesn't matter who he is. He will not. If he's got something to say, whether it's on the pitch, off the pitch, he will say it. Now, I've never seen a game in which George has played where I've questioned his attitude, his desire, or his ability, really. I've always seen a lad that's give everything for the cause. Now, at times, the unfortunate thing is that'll be to the detriment of him.
Yeah.
Because, there might be a role that he has to do, that because for whatever other reasons, he's doing something different. And really, Jack will explain that probably in better senses of why he wants him to do that. But the one thing with George is he won't come off the pitch saying, I could have worked harder. Mm-hmm. He might come off the pitch questioning something he had done. I'm not saying that, because George will look over his game and that. And I just think if we were to say at the time we were in the club, we need somebody that understands the club, understands the fans, understands what it means to play for the club, George was the right person.
Yeah.
If you then take that off the pitch, will George be a shrinking violet when it comes to the changing room? I can categorically tell you no. If he's in the changing room or in training and he needs to rip someone, everyone assume because George's stature, I bet he doesn't say it. He does. And I'm not saying George would ever get in a scrap, because George is a lot more educated than probably what I would have been.
Unless
right?
it's Wickham.
Yeah. Yeah, true. But then if you take it to that for an example, right? It obviously meant something to him, didn't it? He's not shy of getting involved, and if it came to it, he'd be straight in there. Not a question.
It was him To me, it was him defending his teammates in the way that Alex Ray, Kevin Ball, Niall Quinn.
When you go back to that situation, I'm sure I said at the time when they were talking about it, I went, hold up. I'm not saying George was right what he done, but isn't that what we want from our players? Isn't that what we want from our captains? Isn't that what we want from somebody that's prepared to play for Sunderland Football Club, who it means everything to? So, again, you'll have different opinions on it. You could have some people that say the captain should know better. You'll have other people that say good on the captain for getting involved. So you'll have a variation of opinions on the matter. My thing was at the time, and I did say this as well, good on him.
Yeah.
If that's what he felt he needed to do at the time to defend one of his members of staff or members of staff of the club or his teammates, I'd be the first to say, good on you, George. Just next time you shouldn't have got caught.
Yeah.
You know, like that. If it's a sly right hook, which I've done in the past, then like, yeah, so be it. But like I said, I regularly go out for lunch with George. We talk about things. We laugh. We had lunch the other day, hour and a half it might have been, and we were laughing about football things most of the time and situations I was talking to him about, he was talking to me about. He also knows he's lucky that he's got some really good people at the club. Obviously, with Cats leaving, you know, that was a big ally of his. He's very good friends with Cats, but he's got a lot of good senior players at the club that George will bounce things off of. But I've got to tell you, George doesn't matter whether, put it this way, right? George doesn't mind nailing me if he has to nail me about something. Yeah. Right? And he knows that if I had to nail him as a young player, I would do it, but it'd be the best intentions. George's not frightened. It's just sometimes, I don't know whether it's what people want from him or they don't see it, but yeah, I think he's the right person because he does care about what we do. Yeah,
same, I agree, 100%. Now, I think this is probably like the fourth time we've chatted and I still kind of get all my questions across, but we do have a couple of Twitter questions.
Right, go on.
Right? I'll get shot if I don't ask this. Long story short.
Right, go on then. I'll bet it's about Vinnie Jones.
Yes.
Well, there you go.
The Vinnie Jones story. Did you really pin him up against the wall at ROKER Park?
Right. Firstly, what stays in
that means yes.
Yeah, I was going to say what happens in the corridor stays in the corridor. Do you know, it's funny, the amount of times that story gets brought up and it's part and parcel of maybe that era of what we were like with each other. I remember playing against Vinnie for Portsmouth. I remember he was, and still is for me, a player that was absolutely magnificent at making the most of what he had.
Yeah.
Now, I have this big argument nowadays about footballers in general. What makes a good footballer? For me, a good footballer is someone that makes the most of what he's got. And I won't tell you the name of the person I used to sit and talk to about him at times, and he would cane him. Used to say he's not a footballer. But I used to disagree. I used to say, well, one, I've played against him many times to know he's a person that would never, ever leave anything on the pitch bar and 6 studs down your shins like that if he could. I remember, like I said, watching him at Portsmouth when we played against them. I remember then watching him, I mean, that was when I played, for Portsmouth. I remember being down at Leeds and Tony Norman kicking the ball out, Vinnie controlling it on his thigh and then volleying it back and then putting it over Tony's head. Now, when people talk about skill, if I said to you, right, there's 100 footballers, see if they can do that. If you're one that can, everyone will go, you're a great footballer.
Yeah.
He did. So for me, he was a brilliant footballer. I don't care what anybody says. Like, and you can dress it up how you want to look at it from a technical point of view, a physical point of view, a tactical point of view, because let's face it, he knew his job and he knew his job well. So when people say, well, okay, then who should we look up to? Now, did Vinnie at times want to get involved with punching other people in the head? Of course he did. Why is that? Because that was a style of player we were. But we'd walk off the pitch afterwards and shake hands.
Yeah.
Now, I saw Vinnie a couple of years ago at Watford and he was with one of his former managers and I asked at the time, I went, oh, and he said, he's poorly. And he said, I'll come every year to take him. Now, we're now talking, right, an actor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? An LA actor. We're not just talking a footballer that lives around the corner. We're talking about someone who makes the effort to come over and see him. We're talking about somebody that makes an effort to go and really technically say thanks to someone that's looked after him. So I've got, you know, I love him. I laugh when I watch him on the TV, obviously, because I used to think, I used to play against him. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But everything that he does now, what is he doing again in the acting world? He's utilising what he is. So for me, is that not unbelievable sense? It's brilliant.
You did nail him though, didn't you?
Let's move on.
Somebody asked, I thought it was a good question. It's kind of a basic one, but I thought it was a good one. Who would win in a fight between you and John Kay?
Well, it's interesting because I don't think either of us would give up.
Yeah. That's
the downside. None of us would give up until we'd probably, it sounds awful, this, I was able to kill John Kay or anything like that.
But I think, that asked, he said...
but Casey is like... Casey... again, what can we talk about? How can I politely say back? Take the role, I presume he still, I haven't spoken to John for a long time, was a role that he involved with again, young people in Chesley Street surrounding areas. This is what last thing I knew he'd done. And helping them in situations they're in, right? Without evolving and going into it too much. Now, when I used to say to people about that, they go, what, John Kay? And I go, oh, no. So if you knew John Kay as a person, you would know he was the perfect person for that, because he wouldn't judge them and he wouldn't condemn them, but he would try and help them. And we spent a lot of time together. And I'll tell you a funnier story. We went, I think it was Ibiza after the 92 Cup final, right? And I'll never forget it because I was distraught after the cup final. I think it was, no, it wasn't the cup final. It was 1990 when we got relegated, I think, with Denis Smith. I'm trying to think which one it was. Well, anyhow, long story short, I ended up being roomed with, it might have been the 92 Cup final, actually. Timmy Carter, Brian Mooney, John Kay, and me, all right? But that's 4 of us in a 1-bedroom apartment, so the other 2 are on camp beds, right? So you can imagine what it was like. Now, I didn't want to go out. I'm sure it might have been actually when we got relegated. I didn't want to go out. I thought, no, I'm not going out. I wasn't in the mood, and I wasn't a big drinker then. I didn't want to go out. So the boys all go out. I thought, I'm going to bed. So I go to bed. And then whatever time, there's a knock at the door, and there's Casey. All right. So I've looked at him, and I just run my bath, right? Okay, get ready to go out. Okay. So I go back to get in my bath. Bear in mind, I'd let him in. He's already in my bath. Right, so I've looked at him like that, and I thought, well, what do I do now? So I gets in the other end. So now I'm sat in one end of my bath with him at the other end, like looking at each other. So then I want to wash my hair. So you put water on your hair and you put a bit of soap in your hair and wash it. All I kept thinking was, I can't get the soap out. What I didn't realise was Casey was holding the shampoo above my head. So all I was doing was just putting more and more and more and more on my head. So anyhow, I finally get showered up. I went, right, are you going back out with me then? He went, yeah. So we go to order a taxi. Bloke in reception went, oh, that'd be 5, whatever, to order it. I went, I could just go and get one. So we finally gets a taxi. Now, bearing in mind, we're going from our hotel back into the town to find the boys, right? We get a taxi. I can just remember him hanging out the window, abusing everybody and anybody as we drove down the road in the taxi, me trying to drag him in. And he wasn't being nasty, it was just John being John. We gets there, I find the lads, and John just went, I've had enough, I'm going back. And he went back, right? And again, without going into personal detail then, so you get to know these people a lot more like that. Yeah. And one night we went back, and Timmy Carter, God rest his soul, was out with the lads, and me and Casey must have gone back. And I'm not sure if it was a night, me and Casey went to a bar, and it was just me, John, and the barman. Right, so we're sat having a beer, not really talking, just having a beer and a bit of crack. And he was then just telling me about his family background, and was telling me things that I knew nothing about. Yeah, and I'll never forget it because the way he'd done it, I just literally had my pint here, and I just looked at him like that. And that's probably when you then got to know John Kay a little bit deeper, shall we say, like that. And I loved it, and I'll never forget that because it was like that was probably the beginning of just us having, you know, a good relationship. So it goes back to the apartment. Me and him are not drunk really. You know, the bloke in that bar who we were buying drinks was great because it was like, it put me a beer down, him a beer down, then he would put some snacks there. It was just surreal, like, you know. So we go back and I'm not drunk on out like that. And we're laying in bed, and then Timmy comes back. And then Casey's going, right, listen, he knew Timmy, like, loved him. He went, what he's going to do, he's going to come in here and he's going to snog you. Just let him do it. Then he'll leave you alone and go to bed. So I'm laying there thinking, really? Like that? Well, I swear to God, right? He came in, he pinned Casey, snogged him. And I'm laying there thinking, it's my turn now, like that, right? And he came over, and I'm just laying there, mortified, looking at him. And he did, right? Then he went back into the bit where he was on a camp bed, and all I could hear was him singing, oh, do you think you're kidding, Mr. Hitler? Because he thought he was on an army camp bed. And then it went deathly silent. So I'm going to Casey, do you think he's all right? Casey, I'm not going in to check. Like that, right? Now you're talking grown men. So I thought, oh no. So it gets up, I'm going in, and I'm actually got my ear right there, just making sure he's okay. And once I heard him breathe, I thought, thank God for that, and went back in. Never said nothing about it the next day. That would have been it. And so Casey and I had that sort of thing. We once had a spat in training, and I used to pick Casey up one morning, he'd pick me up the next morning. So this day I picked him up, took him training. We nearly had a fight in training. I think he went to do me, so I went to do him. So after training, now I've got to bring him back, but we weren't talking to each other. And we must have gone from Roker Park to near his out, and all he kept doing was going like that to me all the time, right? And in the end, I went, Casey, should we just talk? He went, aye. And that was it, done and dusted. Some of the stories I could tell you about him, character, he's probably by far and away the best character I've ever met in my entire career for somebody that, one, was a really, really, really good footballer.
Yeah.
Two, yeah, he was a little bit nuts. You know, I mean, he tells me about the story of when he went to Scarborough. I'm sure it was Scarborough.
Yeah, he went to Scarborough.
And he's driving back from Scarborough and he got pulled over by the police for speeding. So when the policeman said, what do you do for a living? He said, I'm a footballer. And the policeman turned around and said, well, you do realise your football career will be over if you have an accident, 80 mile an hour like that. And he's meant to have said to the copper, do you not think my career's already over? I'm playing for Scarborough like that. Just see what I mean? Casey, for one-liners, was fantastic.
Yeah.
For coming out with something that will just make you just laugh your head off. But with my kids, he was great. Him and Carol, absolutely brilliant. And I haven't spoken to him for a long time because as with everything, I always said to all the lads I've ever played with, you know where I am. I know where you are. If you need me, just ring me. Not a problem.
Yeah.
If I need you, I'll ring you. But don't think it's something that we have to do every day because we all have our own lives and that. But just understand, if you ever need any help or anything, give me a ring. Because if I need you, I will ring you like that. And my kids loved him. You know what I mean? He is just a character that you can never, ever... I mean, like I said, you meet his mum and dad. I think his mum slapped me around the head once for saying the word F in front of her. Now, like I was probably, 27, 28 at the time, you meet their families and you go round to Carol's mum's house, see her dad and mum for drinks in New Year's Eve and, going over, I think it was first for over the threshold on a New Year's Eve I had to do for them and that. And all these traditions they have up here, like I said, so I was very fortunate that I probably came to the club at a time when, again, I go back to what I've said all the time, the characters at the club were pivotal to success relatively. Yes, we did get relegated that year, but you have to also take into account and really spent next to nothing to try and stay in the league. And if you don't,
of course.
Yeah. But Casey, who would win of a fight out Casey? Put it this way, whoever did win, they'd be in a pretty bad way at the end of it. Either way, But great lad. Absolutely love him.
And there's a final one that I wanted to ask, which I think is a good question, actually. I'm quite curious, but which player who maybe wasn't seen as like a hard man, I'm talking about Sunderland players played alongside, was actually surprisingly hard as nails?
I always go back to this story that Darius Vassell was the ultimate consummate professional. Worked religiously hard, came in, immaculate, went home. Like I said, you can't fault him for was an outstanding player. I got the blame for him being dropped at Derby by Reedy because obviously that would have been the most performances, and obviously Reedy left him out for Gareth, and then there's hell on, and Reedy had a go at me for not telling him, and I went to Reedy, well, you didn't know. I said, how was I to know like that, and I got the blame for that. If Reedy had known that, you wouldn't have done it, because that's something that Darius, to be fair, at the time had earned, because don't get me wrong, there was a degree of Darius that was a little bit selfish, right? And at times he literally would, when I say do his job, like sometimes when you're doing your job, you sometimes have to sacrifice a bit of you for somebody else. Like if you go out on a night out, you're together. You don't, and sometimes Darius maybe had that a little bit that some players didn't like, that they were guys selfish, like he just worries about himself. But if that was Darius's way of getting ahead, if that was Darius's way of making sure he stayed where he was, you have to sort of understand that. Now, if you get into a situation where you can blatantly go to him, Darius, you're bang out of order there because when that happened, you should have done this. If you can educate him on it, so be it.
Yeah. But
you also have to understand, Darius has got his missus. I think he had a little girl at the time.
Yeah.
In another country. He's just wanted to make sure he keeps himself going.
Yeah,
couldn't fault him at all. I'm not going to tell you the player's name, but anyhow, so there was a spat between two players, right? And it got to the stage where they wanted to have a scrap, right? So this particular player obviously fancied his chances. So it's going to be this, we're going to do that. So the next day I went, right, if you want to have a scrap, that's fine. In the players' lounge, the pair of you have your fight, then that's it, finished. Because I used to say, well, if you want to have a fight that badly, get it over and done with.
Do it.
Right, and most players don't want to fight. In training, they stand up to each other, don't really want to fight, right? So in the end, we went, if you want to do it, do it, right? So he all goes in there and the two of them start. And the lad that thought he was going to batter Darius got battered. And not battered as in, but Darius was also, what he didn't know, was a bit of a boxer. And Darius punched his head in. But the funniest thing was, we were all laughing because we had to stop it. Because in the end, he'd have battered him. So it was funny because this lad went in with thinking, I'm going to give him it like the shrug of the shoulders. And Darius popped him all over. It was absolutely hilarious. And in the end, we've had to get in between them. Yeah. And just go, right, enough's enough, like that. So Darius had it in amongst them. Yeah, Darius. But I think, right, when you talk about being hard, I think people sometimes have to have the perception of what is a hard player, what is a competitive player, what is a player that would do anything and everything to win a game of football. And then when they get off the pitch, nobody really wants to fight anybody, do they?
No.
Because unless you have to defend yourself, what does it really gain? But on the pitch, I'd have kicked shit out of anybody to win a game of football, and I can't help that. And I'm not lying when I do it. To defend the teammates, I'd have done it. That's just the way I was. Whether or not that was going back to me dad when he used to know it was about the winning thing of within reason, you do anything and everything to win a game of football. I can't help it. I believe that, because ultimately, why do you go out there 11v11? You got to win the game. Yeah, you don't go there. There is an etiquette. Don't get me wrong, and there is being a sportsman. I understand that. But maybe in the days when we played, you could have that thing where you might do something that you shouldn't do to win a game of football. And is football becoming pure now with everything? Yeah, possibly. And as life evolves, that's the way it's going. And the modern generation probably want to see that. If you took it to our generation, they probably wouldn't have wanted to see it because they enjoyed seeing somebody slyly right hook someone, and getting away with it. You made the picture of Billy Bremner. You imagine that now. You'd never play a game. Yeah. Now, that era, there will have been people that loved it, and there would have been one or two that went, that's a disgrace. But that's life, isn't it? Yeah. So I can't say I would change what I was as a player, how I played, the players I came up against that hurt me, and there was plenty of them. I wouldn't knock them for doing it. I'd like to think that I might have hurt them a little bit more, But it was just a good time to play. Yeah, it was. It was a good time to play. And like I said, you talk about that story with Vinnie. People underestimate how good the footballers were then. Yes, there is some of the skills you see nowadays. But like I said, there's a lot more to football than just twiddling on the ball, shall we say.
Tackling, passing, heading.
Well, I have this debate with people when they say to me, they go, are you Kevin Ball? And I go, they go, you weren't the best of players. Now, I used to just ignore them. Yeah. Because I used to think, they're uneducated in what really takes a footballer. Nowadays, I go, well, go on, then why'd you say that? And then I don't know what to say. Then I list a set of skills that you do have. Now, you ever seen the film Taken? Yeah. Liam Neeson has a particular set of skills. I had a particular set of skills. I made the most of them, right? Yeah. And then when I start saying to him, well, is heading the skill? Is tackling the skill? Is leadership a skill? Is, could I kick the ball with both feet? Could you? Well, yeah, so that's, shows how much you know. I got sent a YouTube thing not long ago, I don't know where it's from, of a compilation of the goals I scored. Mm-hmm. Now,
beauties.
Yeah, and that's what people don't understand. For somebody that technically, Saka used to say, don't go past there, your job is to do this, which I've done. And I think also, digressing a little bit, your coach appreciating what you're really good at is the most important thing, because Saka would go, Kevin Phillips scores the goals, but who gets the ball for Kevin Phillips to score the goals? He'd go Kevin Ball like that. By just appreciating what I'd done, and also it might not be seen in the wider picture, made me keep wanting to do that. Yeah. But going back to some of the goals I scored, I saw the volley against Sheffield United in the playoff final. The technique, and I'm going to sound big-headed here, and I don't mean to, is brilliant. Great. See the one with Chris Waddle, a corner. How many people would score? And like I said, Wolves away.
Last minute.
Yeah, and there's one down at Derby past Peter Shilton where I lobbed him. Yeah. Now, would there have been one or two that I missed, like Spurs away, when Mickey Gray headed it back towards me and Ian Walker was in goal and I just had to put it in the corner and I put it wide of the post? Yeah, absolutely. So I have missed a few like that as well. But people underestimate that side of things as well.
Diving header was the best.
Yeah, and I think the diving header, because again, it's a textbook move, isn't it? When you actually analyse that move, how it's gone from one area to another area, and then you say to young players, I tell you what, I'll give you a run for midfield to get on the time of getting on the end of a cross. And, it's only when you go into coaching you start looking at it like that.
Yeah.
But at the time, all I kept thinking was what a chance. And Andy Melville, I think I may have missed a couple prior to that. I think he said to me after the game, he said, all I kept thinking was, for Christ's sake, put this one away. And you look at that game that night. So you look at that game that night. You're playing against Chelsea, live on Sky. They've got a lot of big hitters, and we go and pan them. So, yeah. And they're the sort of nights when you talk about looking back in your career, a full Roker Park, live on Sky. And I've actually still got the bottle of champagne I got that night for Man of the Match. Still got it in my study. And I look at it's the dining room. And I still look at it and laugh. And I think, why is it still here? 20 odd years later.
Kevin, always a pleasure.
Talk a bit longer if you want. We've got another 15 minutes, as long as I get home for 2.
Yeah, go on then. Right. Okay, so we said it was going to be the last question, but no, it's not. I'll tell you one thing I really wanted to ask. So, slightly away again from the playing career. I said I was going to talk about playing career, but there's something I was quite interested in. I suppose it does tie in with your playing career as well. Someone who is revered in a really, really similar way to yourself in more recent times, Lee Cattermole.
Yeah.
We've recently parted ways. I think we all know kind of the reason. It's probably financials behind it. But what do you think we're losing with Lee Cattermole going?
It's interesting because I'm going to give Lee a ring, because I've no doubt there've been plenty of people that will have rang him and thanked him for what he'd done for the club, really. In terms of, when I talk about his services, it sounds awful, done it that, but he said something to me once, and he was talking about myself, Niall Phillips, Kevin Phillips, and that, talking about how he wanted to be seen when he finished his career, that he wanted to be seen as somebody that give their all for Sunderland Football Club and are revered in the sense of being a legend and that. And he said that to me many years ago, and I took it as a big compliment, because this was, I think he was our club captain at the time, and that, and I thought, well, if you're telling me you want to do that, then you're going to have to live up to that as well. So that means that's a challenge to himself as it is. But I thought it was great of him, and I thought brilliant like that. Now, if we were to sort of digress back a bit over his career, I remember the silly sendings off he used to get, and I used to go to him, if you're going to get sent off, make it worthwhile. Yeah. Do you see what I'm saying? Because some of his sending offs were petulant, as I called it to him at the time. Yeah, second yellows and that. I said, so if you're going to do it, make it worthwhile. And give him credit, he would listen. But we all have our ways of doing things, and Lee had his ways of doing things. The one thing that you could never fault Lee for was his will and his want to be as good as he could be, playing with injuries or not, and to be as good as he could be playing for us. Yeah. Because of the pride he had in his own performances. And if you want to be revered as a legend at a club, you've got to make sure you back that up. And Lee, as much as he could, back that up. Now, when you see towards the latter stage, there was a period of his career where, it was touted as being an England player. We had a system at the time that sort of really, under Poyer, that really showed him in a different light. He probably enjoyed that as well. There's other times he's been used in a different role, but he's done that. I think he thoroughly enjoyed the roles of getting forward and scoring goals, which for me was great watching, because I loved that. I used to love saying to Clarkey, listen, you have a rest, I'm going to try and score now. Now, when you see Lee getting forward and see the look on his face when he scored and the goals return he had, it weren't bad. I also think you've got to take into account he's gone through the pain barrel when it talks about injuries for the greater good. His hip injuries, to go and speak to him about it. And I think, without going into detail again, I'm not sure how long he had the injury for, but I know he tried playing for it, then he'd drop out, then he'd come back. So because of this, you're basically, I'm going to say peeing against the wind, because you're trying to keep yourself as fit as you can because you needed to play. But you actually told me really not helping yourself at all, because all you're gradually doing is making it worse and worse, and you're then struggling to be that as good as what you can be. Then people start questioning your performance and that. And I take it back to, we had a young player once in a really important game, and he was poorly. Now, I said to him, look, do you think you could play? I went, if you do, give it a right go. I went, and if it doesn't happen and you to play not particularly well, because it was a really, really big game at the time, I went, it's my job to say no. We spoke about it. He'd give it a go and it didn't work out, but you defend him like that. And the particular player at the time played. I had to give him a little talking to at half time because he didn't give it a proper go. And then he was brilliant second half. So I could give him the plaudits of saying, well done. I think as a manager, when you know your players are playing with injuries, whilst you don't want to give away secrets to opposition and that, he should have been rightly defended, because there was a time that he would have been playing with this injury that curtails your performances. You know, it's sort of, I would have had to play, I say 100% because I played with loads of injuries over my careers, but you always want to be as strong as you can and as fit as you can. And if you're asked in an elite league like the Premier League to play not 100% fit, not often you're going to get away with it either. But you have to give the bloke credit, because he kept trying, he kept trying, he kept trying. Then it culminates in the last few years where he's had to have the operation. So he has what I class as a bit part season there because of it. Then he has the operation. His first game back, he plays Derby, I think it was, and he played really, really well. And then after that, he didn't really hit the heights you would have expected of somebody of Lee Catmull's stature. I fully expected that, because having been in a situation many years ago where I had a major injury that meant I was out for nearly a year, it took me a good year to come back. And it did affect my career. No, at Portsmouth, it affected my career, the injury I had a thing called lateral compartment syndrome. And I played with it for a long period of time, then I had to have an operation on it. And the surgeon, when I came around, actually went, how the hell you've carried on playing with this? I don't know. And it's probably because of the fact the manager at the time had said to me, he had spoke to the surgeon, which is actually probably the biggest bloody lie ever, who said I could carry on playing, but it wouldn't do any extra damage. Well, I did. So it took me a year to get over it. So with Lee, I knew that year was going to be a year where it was going to be tough for him. You're now all of a sudden saying to your body, right, we need to go back to this again now. Week in, week out, push yourself, week in, week out. So you have the physical side, you have the emotional side. You get all of these aspects come back into your game again. So did he have a season that he'd look back, and again, I might be talking bullshit here, but I wouldn't have said it was the greatest of seasons.
No, it really wasn't. He had a really good season.
So now all of a sudden, you're in a league where the situation we're in now, you could argue Lee Catmull had a great season last year.
He had a very good season.
One, I do think that's because the injury is probably behind him, and I've no doubt I'd be grateful to all our medical department, because ultimately you have to find a solution. You get it, you do it. But I expected Lee Catmull to do well last year. I expected Lee Catmull, with his stature, his playing ability, to do well in League One. Now, if you expect that of somebody, and they actually do it, that's the time you pat them on the back. Yeah. Because they've done what you expected them to do. They've lived up to that reputation of being what he should be. Then it gets to the stage now where obviously the club have done what they've done. Lee, for George, will be a big miss. So somebody needs to step into the breach there to help him, you know, because ultimately, even when I left the club and I had time at Fulham and Burnley, I said to their captain, right, you know, I've been the captain for 7.5 years or 8 years, whatever it was. You're the captain here. All I'm saying is I'm here if you need me. Anything you want, anytime, I'm here if you need me. And that was to Chris Coleman, believe it or not. Went to Burnley. My mate Stevie Davis was captain. Skip. I loved him. Like, went to him, said, right, you know I'm here. So there was never, I want to be captain. I wasn't interested in that. But if I had to be captain, not a problem. But I'll be there for him. So with that now, that somebody else needs to now step forward and actually not replace Lee, because, and no one's irreplaceable, but it'd be a big character missed around the changing room, around the ground, as a player of our football club. It'd be a big, big miss. But then if you look back now, what was his total appearances then? Come on, who no one.
For like across his Sunderland career?
Yeah.
I don't have the internet in front of me, and we'll be able to
find out. Well, I'll tell you what. Then.
A lot, though.
So it'd be a decent, yeah. So let's have a look and see what it is.
It must be at least a few hundred, at least. Let's have a look. So if we're looking at Cats, his total Sunderland appearances, 261.
Yeah. Now, again, over how long?
9 seasons?
9 seasons. But again, take into account injuries and the fact that he used to get sent off bloody often and all that, lot, you know, and the suspensions and that. It's still a decent turn. Yeah. You know, so he'll be a big miss in general around the club. But again, I think massive pat on the back to him, because the one thing you can't really question for his effort and endeavour in turning around and wanting to be as good as he possibly could be. So go back to what I said about footballers. That is it. The art of any footballer or anybody in general is having your potential and surpassing what you can and being as good as you possibly can. And like I say, it'll be a big miss, Lee. Big miss for George. But again, George will have other people that can step into that breach to support him. Grant, people like Grant will do it already anyhow, but like that. But what you do now is say you wish Lee all the best and whatever he chooses to do next. I mean, what is he, 31 now? 32?
31, 32.
31. So he's still got a few years ahead of him. Now, will he play in England? He might even say, actually, I fancy a little trip to the MLS or something like that. Who knows where he's going to end up? But the one thing he should do, and he will do, and we all should do, is look back on his time with us and just say thanks.
Yeah.
He's another one that got it. And I think when you get it and it gets under your skin, you go away upset because you don't want to really leave, but you know at the time it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. So we've got time for one more?
Yeah, go on.
So, see which one could go for. Good question, I think, yeah. Who is the hardest character to captain? Like, did he ever have to have stern words with someone, or you didn't connect with him and you found it quite a challenge as a captain?
That's quite a tough one, that, really, because a tough question.
You kind of touched on Lionel before, and you said you were different people.
I tell you, Lionel, maybe it's Tommy Sorensen a little bit as well. When I think about it, I think I once told Tommy Sorensen to shut the F up in training, so he was getting on my nerves. She's shouting at us. Tommy wasn't difficult, but he was just again, as a goalkeeper, maybe that's what it was. See, but I also got to tell you this, I love my goalkeepers.
Yeah.
I loved my goalkeepers. Because
Is that where you try to love him?
Huh?
Is that where you try to love him?
Yeah. I think what it was with Tommy, I just want to make sure he was concentrating. No, I love my keepers. I think that's one of the hardest positions ever. And I just think, our job is to protect them, and their job, if it's the last call, is to save us type thing. Yeah. Lionel was a character, what he was. Did I connect with him? No, but I really look at it now, probably with Tommy, I probably should really take a sense of responsibility of that myself. I don't think there's anybody over the course of my career I can look back and go, what a pain in the arse he was. Because I think in the main, they are what they are. Can you change them? No, you can manage them. You can sort of guide them. And sometimes you might have to say, you've got no chance of him. And if it gets to the stage where you think you've got no chance, you're probably not going to be playing anyhow because the manager would have already seen it. But I don't think there's many that I could really look back, and it's difficult. I mean, I've no doubt if someone said, what about him? I'd go, like that. Anybody you think that might have been a challenge?
It's the top of my head.
Yeah, see? No,
so it was a good core of, to use a David Moyes phrase, British players. Yeah. And all from a similar sort of area, like Alex Ray, Clarkey, yourself.
I think what it is, in the course of the playing time, I know if you go become a manager, I think one of the most important things, because the involvement of football and the way it's gone, is understanding when people from different cultures, different ways of life come to you, is you've got to understand that. You can't expect them to just go, we're going to be like you, because they're not. They're not. So you've got to understand them to sort of, and that sounds really weird, understand them to manoeuvre them into our way of doing things, but also give them good reason why it'll work. Because if it's worked for them doing what they do, why would they want to come here and change what they do? Yeah. Now, if you don't choose to do that and you get problems, well, that's down to you.
Thomas Helmer.
RBC with Thomas Helmer, what would you have said the problems with him was?
You can only go based on rumours, but I think it was...
Give me a rumour.
But Bobby Saxton had a disagreement with Thomas Helmer because Thomas came from Bayern Munich, just played in the Champions League final, felt a certain team should play a certain way. Bobby Saxton was of a different opinion. Right. And there was a clash of cultures, shall we say.
So, at the end of that season, where did we finish?
7th.
Right. Who's right then?
Bobby Saxton.
Now, I've got to tell you this. That's an argument, every time. Right? So, what I will say to you about Tommy Helmer, right? I played with Tommy a few times in the reserves. I think we played in the first team together. Whatever the reasons were, Saka would never have said it out of spite or anything like that. It would have been a football judgment. Yeah. At that particular time, for us, right? And what I go back to what I said when we won the league, the art of a good manager is balancing a team, right? We all have a philosophy in the way we want to play. If your players are not capable of that, why do you try and play like that? Because all you're going to do is end up in trouble. So I might want to say, I want to play it from the back, and I look at me back four and think, well, no chance. Right, we can't do that. I need to find another solution. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
Now, Sacco knew the most important thing to do was to balance a team. And if he felt at that time that wasn't with Thomas, unless it was a back three, he's entitled to say that, because ultimately he's the one who's going to get the tin tack if it don't work. Now, whatever the disagreement was, they've called it. But that season, we end up 7th. So you have to turn around and go to Sacco. Actually, you've got some bollocks for actually doing that.
Yeah.
Because it's a big call, bearing in mind where Thomas had come from. In Thomas's defence, I'd never, and Stefan Schwartz is another one I can actually put into that. I'd never seen a player come in every day, train magnificently, play in the reserves, just in case he was called upon, magnificently, and all time be a great bloke.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've come across Thomas ever since. But he was, again, somebody that when you talk about players that could have been difficult, Thomas wasn't.
Never complained.
No. And Stefan was a great pro, and I still speak to him now. But Thomas was outstanding. Like, come in immaculate, trained hard, played in the reserves, never an argument. And that's credit to him. And now when you consider where he's come from, could he have spat his dummy out? Yeah, he probably could have done. But I think Thomas was slightly above that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But again, you know, Sacco managed the situation for me brilliantly because that's how he felt. Go on, one more question, and then I better go. And I've got gardening to do.
What we got? All right, on the subject, since you've asked, Bobby Saxton. Now, we've spoke about Bobby Saxton in private a lot, and I love Bobby Saxton, just from the stories.
Yeah.
We've all heard the Reedy stories. We've all heard the good, funny stories about Reedy, and we all know the character he is. But what's your best and funniest memory of Bobby Saxton?
Oh, I don't know, really. I hate it when you do this. I just think Sacco was... I think what's important first is when Sacco sort of moved roles, I think it was the wrong decision at the time.
Yeah.
I did say it at the time.
When Adrian Heath went into...
Yeah. And at the end of the day, you know, whatever happened and why it happened, we might not know the full SP of it all, but I did say at the time I wasn't sure about that because Bobby Saxton's knowledge of football is immense, but his understanding of people goes beyond that.
Yeah.
So Sacco and I had a great relationship. I still go and see him now, and he moves the pint pots about. We went to the Beamish Mary, I think. Or was it the Beamish Mary? I can't remember where we were. And we met for dinner. This was a little while ago, actually. He told me what I was having. I had to have the mixed grill. We got there at 6 o'clock, and and then once we have dinner, we have the crack, then we'd go on about football. And it must have been maybe it's 9 o'clock. And you know where you're just concentrating on each other by now, right?
Yeah.
But you know other people are milling around you. And then it went quiet, and they were just looking at us. We looked up, and everybody was just looking at us, and it was the start of the quiz. And they basically wanted us to piss off. Like, do you know what I mean? I went, Sacco, I think it's about time we left like that. I was at Ramside not long ago with his Neil and him, and Neil had to go, so me and Sacco had an hour of a coffee, and he's up there talking football, starting positional play. And I mean, God knows what age he is now, but he can't help his enthusiasm for it. So he's, again, somebody that might be in the situation now where he still is somebody that you, for me, could call upon and go, right, what do you think of this? Now, it doesn't mean you have to do what he says, but he'd give you a solution.
Yeah.
Or an opinion. But Sacco was funny because we played down at Liverpool for an example, right? And I was meant to mark Steve McManaman and go back to Darius, right? So there's a set play. I was back in his corner, and I don't think for some reason I went up or something happened, and I ended up in Darius's position covering us as a back four, and McManaman started running the other way. Now, for that particular moment, I don't think Darius probably even thought of it. Darius just made his way back to here to fill this gap, not realising we'd said, well, stay with McManaman until the ball goes dead again. So he left him. So McManaman breaks forward and only rifles the ball in from 30 yards in the top corner. Proper, by the way, right? I'm now in the right back position. He does that. I think I started running after him, going, please don't score, as I'm running after him.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? And then Sacco started, didn't he? I could hear him from the bench. Bally! Enough. I'm giving the rubber ear, didn't I? I wouldn't look over there because I knew he was going to give me it. And he was quite good, right? So he left it, never said a thing. Now, I've got to get the timings all right here. I don't know if this was the right time. And then we might have gone to Grimsby. I might get this wrong, so if I'm wrong, but we played the game. I only had a big row with Reedy. No, it wasn't that. When did he do it? But anyhow, I don't know if it was then, but we ended up having words, me and Sacco, right? And he just threw it out there. Anyhow, where the call you when McManaman scored at Liverpool? It's like he stayed within him for weeks. Then all of a sudden, when he knew he could nail me, he'd go, and then anyhow, where the fuck were you when McManaman scored? And I just looked at him, and I probably just crumbled at the time. Do you know what I mean? But I'm not sure if it then was when we played Grimsby, and I'd had a row with Reedy, about something, and we went out that night and to Manchester for a few drinks. Everybody stayed down, and we're in this club, and my mate from America was over, and Sacco wanted to get the ball out, right? And I went, Sacco, highway man, the boys are out, ain't the time to get the ball out. And I think that's when he started going, so we're a big footballer, are we? Think you can do this, can you? He's in the middle of the nightclub starting to make out, and he literally systematically caned me as a footballer in that. My mate was behind him crying with laughter because he said my mouth just dropped. But I'm sure that might have been the time. And he said, anyhow, where the fuck were you when McManaman scored like that? But it was like he stored it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or the other one was funny was the year we won the championship with 105 points. I was still in the zone.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to lose a game. Once we won the league, I didn't want to lose a game. Let's keep going like that. So I'm training like an idiot still. And Nicky Summer kicked me. So I've looked round and gone to Sacco. Sacco, that's a penalty. And I probably said a few swear words as well. And he went, me, you effing what? I went, it's an effing penalty. What's it now like that? Stop training. Actually stopped training to walk over. He says, you've kicked the shit out of the lads all year. He's gone and you want me to give you a free kick? I went, yeah, like that. He went, get in. Like, he sent me in, right? I've gone, I'm not going in. He went, get in. I went, no. Like that. Then he poked me in the chest, right? I'll never forget. He poked me in the chest. I went, Sacco, he poked me in the chest like that. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't going to do anything. But, you know, like, all of a sudden, it's a little bit of standing there, you know what I mean? I went, don't poke me in the chest. Then he leaned forward and he went, go in. I went, no. And then he went, do you want me to get the manager, Kevin? He called me Kevin. That's where, you know what I mean? And I went, no, I don't. And I walked in. I wouldn't go in, right? I would not go in. And I sat doing sit-ups and press-ups while the session was going on. I'm fuming like that, right? And I thought I'd upset him. So after training, knocked on his door, went, Sacco, can I come and see you? Yeah, in you come, mate. I went, we all right like that? He'd gone, yeah, why? And he went, no, I had to do it. I went, what do you mean you fucking had to do it? He went, think about it. He went, you're still doing the job. He went, and you're at it. He said, this is fucking brilliant, He's going like that, right? He said, you're still at it. He said, I ain't got to worry about you. He said, but the others I have. He went, so that was my chance to nail that lot. He went, sorry about that. That was it. Like, just, you know what I mean? It was like he had to use me to batter them because to say, listen, if I can send the captain in, I'll fucking do it to you lot, so up your game like that. And that's what he would do. But I thought I'd upset him. Even that time in Manchester, I had to go and find him. So are we all right? And that's where you start learning little bits, what it takes to be a manager and a coach. That is a psychological aspect's massive. But yeah, honestly, he was brilliant. And all I was really concerned about was making sure we hadn't had a fallout. Me and him. You know, sending me in, poking me in the chest, I don't give a shit about that. It's not really going to hurt me, is it? And he didn't need to worry about me training because I'm still training as hard as I always had done. But he was cute at knowing how to deal with people. So I go back to what I've spoke about during this tour. You can be a great coach, but you need to understand people. And that's when managers bring players in. Nowadays, it's one of the fundamental things they need to do is get to know their personalities. Get to understand how they work a little bit and sort of say, and it might be they get in, go back to Denis Smith. He done his work on me. He knew, he thought, right, I've got half a chance with this one. If he thought that half a chance was a little bit the other way, he'd have just probably thanked me and I'd probably never heard of him again. And that's where, I don't know what impact managers have now on signings, whether a lot of it is done for them. They might say, yeah, but they need to get the feel for him. They need to understand. They need to just go, can I work with him? I worked with a young sports scientist at a club. He's not young now, Scotty, anymore. And
Scott Ainsley?
No, well, Scotty I've worked with before. Scott Pearce, his name was. And Scotty had been working part-time at the club. And there was a view to bring him in full-time because he was very, very, very good at what he'd done. I wanted to know that I could work with him, right? Now, it wasn't necessarily clash of personalities or nothing like that. It was more, I just didn't know if I could work with him. So he came in and done a session. Then I was in the coaches, we're getting changed in the coach, and I timed it to make sure I was in at the same time. So I started having a crack with him like that, and he was going, I think I'm coming in to work with you full time. I just went, are you? It's not what I've been told. So I threw it back at him a little bit and started sort of being a bit like that at him, and just had the crack with him for about 15 minutes while I was having my shower. And then I thought, yeah, I can work with him. Yeah. That was it. I knew I could work with him, and that's all I had to do. And I went back up, and then when he finally came in, we sort of spoke about it. I said, he went, why didn't you come and do anything with me? I said, I did. I went, what do you mean you did? He said, well, I said, you remember that 15 minutes when I was having my shower and I was caning you a little bit? He went, yeah. I said, that was it then. I said, I need to know I could work with you. But I said, and you need to know you could work with me because you might have gone away from thinking I didn't like him.
Yeah.
And another time was we sat upstairs and we had an argument about training. He got to know how football works. He's an outstanding sports scientist, exactly as Scott Ainsey, outstanding. But he got to know me as a coach. He knew when I came in what sort of mood I'd be in, bearing in mind how well the lads had trained, what was expected of them, da-di-da-di-da. And very rarely did we disagree. But one day we came in and I disagreed with him. But I knew he was right. So I went, no, we're not doing that. I need to do this today. And I must have kept him going for ages. And he's arguing with me about it. And he's going, no, you're wrong. I'm going, no, I'm not. I'm right. I'm the coach, like that, right? Now, obviously, there has to come a line where he shuts up, because ultimately the lead coach technically gets the input for everybody else, make decisions because his head's on the block type thing. And right at the very end, I went, no, you're right, really. And then obviously he swore at me. Why did you have to do that? I went, because I needed to know you're prepared to have a go back at me. Yeah. Now, if it's in the confines of in a private room and you want to argue the toss with me, I think you've got to do that. When you come out of there, we might still disagree, but he's got to understand why I'm doing it and then stick with it. Because if I see a weakness in him to go off and do his own thing, I'm in trouble a little bit there, aren't I? And to give him credit, I said, you need to learn going forward, if you really, really disagree with something, be brave enough to that, but also understand that the coach or manager might still turn around and say to him, yeah, I get it, but that's when you've got to go, okay. Now, to give Scott Pearce credit, you know, he's gone to Taiwan, done stuff. You know, he's working, I think, at the foundation now. He worked with Sam Allardyce because there was a lot of changes around after Sam left, and that was a shame. But he was brilliant to work with. And like I look back at the coaching times, so much I would have took from Sacco, you would do it, you know, like really good. I'm going now. Right, ta-da.
All right.